It wasn't so long ago, was it, that we were looking at spy shots and teaser images of the upcoming Tata Harrier. And it made headlines for all the right reasons. It had a Land Rover derived platform, a powerful engine, and all the modern features that you could ask for. It found some real fans in an SUV-hungry country like India. And Tata followed that up with the relaunch of the Safari nameplate. It followed a similar formula but in a larger format. And after all this while, both these vehicles have gone through multiple variations, slight changes, and they've been brought up to the mark. But today I have the highly changed 2023 versions of the Tata Harrier and the Tata Safari. In this video, I'm going to be giving you my opinion on the design, the interior features and the performance, what they have to offer. So without wasting any time, let's get started. My name is Karan Mathur, you're watching autoX, and let's get to it. So let's start with the Safari, and I think the design is a bit of a mixed bag. If you step back, the overall silhouette, a non-enthusiast will be hard-pressed to tell that this is the new Safari. But once you step closer and you look at the changed details, that's when you realize this is a much more stylish and a much more appealing design. The first thing that you will notice is this one-piece LED daylight strip, and once you step to the car, once you turn it on, you will get a welcome animation that looks really good. And right below that, you get a bolder, a much more pronounced grille, and it also gets these grille inserts, what the company calls chiclets. I don't know why, but that's what they call them. And these are also body colored, which the company claims is the first in the country. Now, the lower grille also houses the sensors for the ADAS, and I think the contrast between the body colored grille inserts and the blacked out lower grille, that looks really good. Now with that, you'll notice the all new 19-inch alloy wheels with bigger 245 section rubber. Now this really fills out the wheel wells, and alloy wheels look really stylish. I think this really steps up the side profile of the Tata Safari. Now before we get to the back, you'll notice that the wraparound tail lights have changed. It starts from the side and they have been really chiseled out to give you that butch appearance. The one-piece LED tail lamp, like the DRLs at the front, also have a welcome animation, and once you start it up at night or lock the car at night, they look really good. Even the braking is an aesthetic affair because the tail lamps really do look very stylish. And overall, I think that the design has really been stepped up. I admit that there's not a lot that has changed, and a lot of people will be saying that this isn't the change that they were expecting, and I think the Safari really did work in terms of a design study. So with that, now the design of the Tata Safari is done. Now let's step inside and I'll show you where the real changes lie. Now, as I showed you, the exterior has changed, but some might feel that it isn't enough to justify a full facelift. But once they step inside, they look at the interior and they get the first impression of what the interior layout has to offer, they will change their mind, I feel. If you start with the changed steering wheel design, you may think it's the same one which you get in the Nexon, but this is a 4-spoke steering wheel compared to the 2-spoke in the Tata Nexon. And if you look right beside it, you do get paddle shifters, and I'll get to how they perform and the feedback which they have to give later on. But for now, I think it is a pretty welcome touch for a premium SUV like the Tata Safari. Now, if you come to the dashboard layout, the highlighting factor is the 12.3-inch infotainment system with a 10.25-inch instrument console right beside it. If you talk about the instrument console, I think it works really well. The feedback is really good. The touch and the controls are easy to use, but the only thing is that if there's direct sunlight coming from behind the touchscreen, well, I think it gets a little difficult to see what's on the screen. But other than that, the graphics are sharp, the layout is simple, you get loads of features like the 13-mode JBL sound system. You also get wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and like you got in the Tata Nexon, The maps which are displayed on the infotainment system can be transferred on to the instrument console as well. And I think this has one of the best layouts for navigation displays that I've seen in any vehicle. Now, if you come below that, you get the touch-based HVAC controls. I think these also work really well. And the only problem I found here, between the fan speed controls, you have one line which is not dynamic. If you turn the fan speed down or up, the line remains the same, and I think it is a bit of a missed opportunity. In fact, it is pointless to have a line which doesn't move with this fan speed. And another problem which I found, and if you're not careful with the touch for the fan speed, you might end up turning the hazard lights on or off. But overall, I think it looks really nice, it works decently enough, and it is a really welcome touch to a premium offering that is the Tata Safari. And then we come to the center console. The overall design remains the same, but the elements like the premium looking lever for the shift-by-wire e-transmission and the bejeweled, not my words but Tata's, the bejeweled terrain response dial. Now this gets a digital display to read out what terrain you're on, and right besides that you also get the buttons to change the drive modes as well. You get 3 modes, which is Sport, Eco and City, and you get 3 terrain modes, which is normal, wet and rough road. And how these perform, of course we'll get to them when we're driving the vehicle. And for now, I think the overall cockpit layout for the driver is really welcoming. However, one change which I'd like to suggest to Tata would be to tilt the screen more towards the driver, because for now it is placed head on and it gets a bit difficult to see in harsh sunlight. And of course, now we get to the comfort which the front seats have to offer, and I think these are one of the most cushiony, comfortable seats that I've had the pleasure to sit on and drive. But they are wide and you will have to be careful in our weather. But in terms of features, these are ventilated and these are cold, so on a hot summer day, you'll be glad that you picked this version of the Tata Safari. But now you find me in the second row of comfort and start with captain seats. And now I really like the comfort that these captain seats have to offer, because these are not only ventilated and cooled like the front seats, but they are also wide, they're cushiony, and you can sit here for long road trips for hours and hours at a time. Over that, the headrests are also adjustable in multiple different ways, which is also a definite plus. Over that, now get features like a sunshade. You also get multiple charging ports right over here. You also get loads of storage areas, one in the center console, 2 on each of the door pads. And over that, if you are a chauffeur-driven owner, well, you are in for a treat, because in the new Safari, the front passenger seat, if it's set too further back, it can be adjusted multiple different ways right from the back itself, with the controls placed in the side bolster. Overall, with the space, with the comfort and with the features, the second row passengers will be fighting to sit in this space as much as they'd be fighting to sit in the front. Now, of course, you also get the large panoramic sunroof, which means you get the feeling of airiness, and that also adds to the visual drama. Now again, one of the biggest downside is that the upholstery is all white, and it will get difficult to maintain them in a country like India. Now overall, I think the second row of seats is a comfortable and spacious place to be. But I know the question which you guys have to ask, what about third row? Is that comfortable? Does that have any features? Well, let's find out. Now, as you can see, I'm in the third row and I'm not all that uncomfortable as well. My height is 5'6", and the second row of seats is set to my seat height, my comfort in fact, and I'm decently comfortable sitting over here. And adding to that fact is the amount of conveniences that you get. You get a mobile storage area, you get a bottle storage area, you get your own AC fan controls, and over that you also get 2 charging ports, a type A and a type C charging port. And overall, with the comfort, the space and the features, the third row of space in the Tata Safari is in fact better than competition like the Scorpio and the XUV700. Now, this isn't as cushiony as what you'd find in the front two rows of seats, but it is pretty decently padded. These are ventilated, and you also get adjustment for the headrest as well. So, with a bit of fiddling around, you can definitely find a comfortable place to sit for a short road trip. Now, of course, I'd like to add that the second row of seats is set to my height. So as a result, the space which I get in the third row is pretty decent. But if someone taller, maybe 5'8", 5'9", or even taller, gets into the second row of seats, adjusts those seats to his height, then I feel that the third row will get a bit cramped despite the features and the conveniences that it has to offer. So we've spoken about the comfort and the technology, what all three rows of seat have to offer, but what about the boot? First and foremost, I'd like to talk about the opening and closing mechanism, because there are a total of 4 ways in which you can do that. The first is via a button on the dashboard. The second is via the key fob. Third is via a button placed right over here. And the final and the party trick is via foot gesture control. Wave your foot. If you have heavy bags or any luggage which you have to offer, you can just wave your foot and the door will slide open. But with all 3 rows of seats up, I think it's going to get difficult to even keep one duffel bag or a small handbag for short road trips. What you really have to do is fold the third row of seats down to get any sort of proper luggage room. If you fold them down, you get up to 680 liters of boot space, and if you fold the second row of seats down, you get up to 1550 liters of boot space. That is plenty and more for all your luggage carrying needs, and I think that is a welcome addition to what is essentially the quintessential family SUV. So finally, we now come to the performance, and the Tata Safari was always a great car to drive. It had a powerful engine, a great suspension, great drivability, and overall it was an extremely pleasant experience. Now with the all new one, it does retain the same engine, the same transmission options and the similar suspension setup, but it also gets some added mechanical bits. Supposing if you talk about the engine, so now you get paddle shifters to go with the 6-speed automatic transmission. And the transmission is now a shift-by-wire electronic system, which means you not only get an extremely premium looking lever, but the drive and terrain response modes are also well integrated with the help of the shift-by-wire system. Now all of these have been integrated into the electronic power steering, the shift-by-wire transmission and the response of the engine as well. I felt in Eco the car did feel subdued quite a bit, and that is best if you want to extract the maximum mileage, or you just want to get on the expressways and drive normally. You feel relaxed, not wanting to push the car a lot. That is where the Eco really comes into play. Now shifting into the city mode, I feel that is the perfect balance between driving Eco and driving in the sport mode, because it tunes the engine and the transmission accordingly. The power builds linearly. The mode automatically manipulates the engine, the power steering and the transmission accordingly. It doesn't feel rushed, it doesn't feel high strung, it doesn't feel uncomfortable to drive. It is just the perfect. While we were making our way to our shoot locations, we did try to push the car in city mode, and it kept up well enough. Now here I'd like to mention that the electronic power steering goes soft in the Eco and city modes, while it stiffens up in the sport mode. While driving, however, I couldn't feel a lot of difference, so it's better not to pay too much attention to the response from the power steering. But overall, the steering did feel slightly lifeless, but the car felt quite direct, turning it into corners. However, where it makes the most difference is with the engine and transmission. In Eco, City and Sport, there is quite a bit of difference in the power delivery that the car has to offer, And if you talk about the engine itself, 2-liter Cryotech turbo diesel engine, it makes 170 PS and 350 Newton meters of torque, and all the time. And I feel it is an extremely spirited performer. We liked how it performed in the previous iterations, we liked how it performed in the MG Hector, and overall this is a great engine with loads of characteristics and absolutely no dead spot. It tends to behave like a turbo petrol where you can keep pushing it and be hard pressed to find a really open road where you will find its limit. The response from the transmission heavily depends on what drive mode you're in. It does tend to shift up fast and shift down slowly when you're in eco or city mode, but sport. The sport mode was a real pleasure to drive this Tata Safari in. It always keeps you in the meat of the power. Whenever you press the throttle, it just lurches forward without any hesitations, and when you're slowing down, the transmission eggs you on by shifting down as quick as possible, and again, always keeping you in the right power band to do your bidding. One thing that was a disappointment are these paddle shifters. They work well when you're not trying to push the car, but if you try to do so, but if you try to shift down too aggressively, well, it doesn't like it and it tends to throw up a lot of warning lights, and in actuality doesn't shift down. Now I feel that paddle shifters work well when you're just driving the car around sedately and you like to manipulate the driving experience yourself. But if you try to push the car, that's where you'll find the paddle shifter don't work as good as you might have hoped. If you're pushing it too hard and you tend to downshift when it doesn't want to, it throws up a bunch of warning light but doesn't actually shift down. You have to slow down a little bit, and that's when it'll actually shift down and give you that power boost. But overall, if you disregard the drive modes and the electronic power steering, the shift-by-wire transmission, the engine is still the sprightly performer that we remember and we loved, and that hasn't changed. Now let's come to the suspension, and that I feel is where the Tata Safari's true potential lies. It is one of the most balanced suspension that I've come across, which means you push into the corner, it's pretty direct, it keeps you hunkered down, it keeps you planted and takes corners like a real champ. But of course, it does have body roll, which means it's comfortable as well. Going through bad roads, pothole-ridden roads was no problem whatsoever. An extremely rough road with jagged rocks all across, I was pushing the car around the 25 to 30 km per hour mark, and you could hardly feel anything inside. It doesn't bottom out, it doesn't complain, it just gets on with the job and does it well. Now, while you can push the car to its limits and hard through corners, straight roads, city roads and rough roads, these are the three scenarios where the Tata Safari really excels. Now I feel since it's meant to do that job, in this aspect it comes out with high marks. Now with that, let's come to the final aspect of the performance, which is the brakes. First time when I drove the Harrier, it had drum brakes at the back. If you were at high speeds and you came across an emergency braking situation, the rear of the car didn't have the brake bite and the suspension was too soft, which means you ended up upsetting the car quite a bit, and that was quite an unnerving experience. Eventually, it did get disc brakes all around. The new Tata Safari and Tata Harrier, I'm happy to report that braking system is on point. It brakes with conviction, it brakes fast, and it doesn't feel unnerving at all. It brakes on the marks, and that just builds your confidence when you're trying to push the car hard. So overall, if I had to sum up my experience with the performance, well, that is a thumbs up from my side because it goes hard, it has loads of technology to back up the performance and what it's meant to do as an SUV, which is haul a bunch of luggage, family around, go to untamed locations, and whatever you need it to do, it does well. Alright, now that's done with the Tata Safari. You guys know what it's all about. Now it's time to get to the Tata Harrier. And as you can see, this signature yellow shade really sets off the look of the Tata Harrier. The Tata Safari can be called elegant. This can be just called stunning. And if you talk about the details, you get the one-piece LED strip on top, and below you also get the signature grille elements which you saw in the Tata Safari, but there they were body colored. Here you get a dark chrome effect. One difference though is that the lower grille, that also gets that chiclet effect, and while it was blacked out in the Tata Safari, here you get the dark chrome effect as well. Both of them look really good, but I feel in the Tata Harrier, with the dark chrome effect on the top and lower grille, this really is a very intimidating look. Alright, now if you look to the side, the biggest difference between the Tata Safari and the Tata Harrier is here. You get a 245 section tyre with 19-inch dual-tone alloy wheels on the Safari. Here you get 235 section with 18-inch alloy wheels, and somehow the tyres and alloy wheels in the Tata Safari just fill out the wheel wells quite well. Here they somehow look a little under-tired in comparison. Here the blacked out 18-inch alloy wheels look really good, and I feel the contrast with the vibrant body colored and the blacked out alloy wheels goes really well. The Harrier will really appeal to those who are slightly younger, those who like a bit of drama, a bit of visual drama if you like in their life. I think the Harrier is going to fulfill their needs really, really well. And another thing, the handlebars on the Tata Safari had this chrome accent on the side. Here they are body colored. Another little detail which really sets off the tone of the whole Harrier persona. Now another thing that I'd like to add is, if you see the edges, the chiseled design at the front and at the back, this really gives it a modern premium feel, and I feel looking at the Tata Harrier from its side profile is a really visually appealing affair, and I really like what it has to offer. Now with that, we move to this back. As here, like the Safari, you can see the chiseled body hugging LED tail lamp starts from the side, goes all the way to the other side. This is a one-piece affair, and like the front, these also get a welcome animation which look really good at night, or if you're parking it in some sort of basement parking. Now at the back, the biggest highlight is the LED tail lamp. Other than that, you get a blacked out diffuser over here. The overall stance hasn't changed much. The details is what matters, and that's what makes the Tata Harrier so good looking. Now that you know what the Tata Harrier looks like and what it has to offer on the outside, I feel we should step inside, because that's where the magic happens, and that's where you'll find all the major changes lie. So once you step inside, the tech and the layout is similar to what you get in the Tata Safari, but it's the design elements which are different and which really stand out in the Tata Harrier. In this neon green shade I have on the exterior, that's been carried over to the interior as well, with a bit of crisscross pattern, and you can see on the center console and all these elements around the wireless charging and the terrain mode dial, and that's been kept similar to the exterior shade as well, and all of it looks really nice. It looks really stunning, and it is a visual treat. If you look towards the dashboard, the Tata Safari had a wooden layout with white seats. Here you get a body colored layout with black seats and similar stitching. So this looks a lot more sporty, it looks a lot more stunning than the Tata Safari. That is poise, that's elegant, that will appeal to someone who is a little more mature. This one will appeal to those who are younger, who want a little more visual drama in their life. That's who it will appeal to. But the rest of it remains similar. You get the 12.3-inch infotainment system, the 10.25-inch instrument console. Now I'd like to add in the instrument console, the biggest highlight that I liked was the 3D surround view that you get. It's really crisp, and like premium cars, you can even select which side of the car you want to look at, and all of it really adds to the flair of the Tata Harrier. And in terms of the instrument console, it's really easy to navigate through the menus. However, one thing that stood out was that when I was using the Tata Safari, I had my Android phone connected and Google Maps was running just fine. But when we stepped into the Tata Harrier, my cameraman Sunil, he connected his iPhone to the Tata Harrier, and Google Maps didn't work here, but Apple Maps worked perfectly fine. However, we'll be talking about this later. We had the automatic in the Tata Safari. This has the manual, and this I feel kind of hinders the overall vibe of the Tata Harrier. It feels a bit tacky, it feels a bit non-premium. Even the button which takes you into reverse feels a bit flimsy. So this I feel could have been different, but And overall, I really like what the Harrier has to offer. And before we move to the back, one highlight that I'd like to talk about is the JBL sound system. It's loud, it's bassy. It'll really keep you happy if you listen to that kind of music, be it hip hop, be it Punjabi music. All that works really well. But I feel if you compare it to its nearest rival, which is the Scorpio, that has a crisp sound. This has a loud and bassy note. Now, once you step to the back, it's not the comfort or the features which really entice you, it's the space on offer. The seat in front is set to my height and I'm 5'6". Look at the amount of space I have on offer. It's absolutely acres of space which will keep me and my passengers happy in any journey that you put them through. Here too, you get these ventilated seats. These are not cooled. The ones in front, you do get ventilated and cooled seats. And the Safari, you get ventilated and cooled seats at the back as well. Here, not so much. Here, you only get ventilated seats for the two outer passengers. But since this is a bench seat, I get a comfortable rear armrest. You also get cup holders in the middle. You get two storage compartments on each of the door pad. And if you talk about the design layout, here too you get an all black interior with the yellow accents in the door pads, and you also get yellow stitching strewn all across. So overall, the rear seat is a really comfortable place to be. It's really spacious and it is not lacking in features. You do get a fast type C and a fast type A charging port. You also get a sun shade. So overall, I feel I'm really happy in sitting in the Tata Harrier. This will be perfect for a nuclear family or a smaller family compared to the Tata Safari and everything. With that, another point which I'd like to add with comfort is the headrest. These dynamic headrests can be adjusted in multiple different ways. I showed that to you in the Tata Safari and that is carried over in the Tata Harrier as well. Like an airplane, you can just set the headrest where you want and doze off. So overall, I'm really happy and really comfortable with the second row of seats in this Tata Harrier. There's plenty of space, there's plenty of comfort and enough features to keep a family happy. However, if you feel that the all-black interior layout of the Tata Harrier will make someone feel claustrophobic, well, you also get a large panoramic sunroof which gives you the added layer of airiness which will help you in your journey. With that, we come to the boot space, and like the Tata Safari, you have four ways of opening and closing the boot lid. The first is the dashboard, the second is the key fob, third is a button on the boot lid, and finally you have the party trick, which is the gesture control with your foot. Now, as for the space, you get 445 litres of boot space with the second row of seats up and 815 litres of boot space with the second row of seats down. Now, I feel that is plenty of space for a family which will be able to fit in the Tata Harrier. They'll be able to get their luggage, all the luggage that they need for an extended road trip. And as you can see, it's deep, it's wide, so it can fit a large variety of bags and it can fit a large amount of bags as well. Alright, so driving the Tata Harrier now, and it is a different driving experience in terms of the engine and the electronics, but what is different in this version is that we're driving the 6-speed manual transmission, and that will also give us a good idea of what that would be like in the Tata Safari. Now initially, the first impression, the clutch travel is quite long and that can get a bit tiresome in stop and go traffic or if you're stopping and setting off again and again. Now another hindrance to this entire driving experience is the on and off throttle transition. They can get a bit jerky sometimes, but they will be your friend and partner when you're in a hurry or you want to drive in a spirited manner. But if you just want to drive in a comfortable, sedate, mild manner, that can get a bit tiresome and troublesome as well. However, if you talk about the transmission itself, the gear lever has a pretty short, pretty slick and pretty precise shifting experience. So as a result, some of the enthusiasm which you lose from the clutch travel and the clutch bite, you'll gain in the shifting maneuver. Next thing, when you drive the car, you'll notice that it is geared pretty evenly, which means the first and second gear are geared pretty short. They're meant for rough terrains, they're meant for slow speed usage, they're meant for a variety of reasons which you'll put the Tata Harrier through, and that's a pretty good thing. India is a vast country with vast driving experiences, and you'll be thanking the 6-speed manual transmission in the Tata Harrier in those times. Next, if you talk about the third and fourth gear, that has a pretty flat torque curve, which means they are geared pretty evenly. You can use third in the city in slow speed usage. You can use fourth when you're at slow speeds on a highway. They can be used for a variety of reasons. Basically, you can be in double-digit speeds, go up to triple-digit speeds in third gear as well. In that manner, the gear ratios are spread out pretty evenly, and I like that about this transmission. Now, fifth and sixth are geared pretty tall, and they'll come in handy for extended highway usage, they'll come in handy for fuel saving, and they'll come in handy for a vast amount of driving experiences. So as a result, that's why I said the gear ratios are spread out pretty evenly. They cover a vast amount of driving experiences which they can put you at ease. However, while the transmission is slick and the gear ratios are pretty evenly spaced out, there's no getting rid of the turbo lag. You do feel it when you're setting off, and you do feel it when you have to overtake. If you're in the wrong gear, you will get left behind. However, once it starts going, once the turbo spools, the engine is pretty fast to respond, and you do feel that power and that torque coming into full effect. Let's talk about the suspension on the Tata Harrier. You get McPherson struts with coil springs and anti-roll bars at the front, and you get a semi-independent suspension with coil springs at the back. Both of them work in cohesion, and the result is a pretty balanced ride quality. I said that in the Safari, but it's true here as well. The difference which comes about is while the Tata Harrier feels a little more lighter and more nimble, the Tata Safari feels hunkered down and feels a lot more planted. That will come down to the weight, but that's just how it is. The Tata Harrier becomes a little more fun to drive in an enthusiastic manner, while the Tata Safari is in its element, cruising down the highway at triple-digit speeds with no disturbances whatsoever. But both of them have a pretty decent ride quality, and they'll keep you happy in whatever situations you put them through. However, the biggest highlight is when you put it through rough road conditions, because this suspension absolutely annihilates any sort of potholes, bumps or crude surfaces that you put them through. The passengers are kept comfortable, the steering is precise, and everything just functions as it should. Now, we will be taking these cars out for a proper road test review, putting them through a variety of more conditions, bring you a proper detailed road test review. But until then, I'm pretty happy in terms of the driving, in terms of the suspension, and in terms of the looks, of course. These cars are absolutely stunning, and if you don't even like them for the driving experience, you'd like to park them and just look at them. So with that, let's get to the verdict and tell you what I think about them. So that was our first impression and a day well spent with the new Tata Harrier and the new Tata Safari. And I feel Tata Motors has really stepped up the game in terms of styling, in terms of features, and in terms of safety. These two were really good SUVs in their previous iterations, but the new ones, well, they've taken the game up 2 notches. And if you're willing to put down your hard-earned cash for any of these two, well, you shouldn't think twice. But the price is not out yet, and I'll reserve my definitive verdict until then. And if you're willing to put down the money where your mouth is, you wouldn't be wrong. And with that, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think of these two SUVs? My name is Karan Mathur. I'll be seeing you guys real soon.